hour of Law and Crime starts now. I'm Vincent Hill, joined by Ronn Blitzer. Of course, we are coast to coast, live gavel to gavel coverage. Of course, we're waiting for Jason Carter in Iowa. That trial will begin hopefully Thursday. We expected that to begin today, but they were doing jury selection. Now, he is accused of killing his mother back in 2015. He actually went to trial in a civil case and lost that case. He was ordered to pay $10 million. And based on that, 2 days later, investigators actually charged him with the death of his murder. Of course, one of the trials we've been covering also, Newman Raja in Florida. He's accused of shooting and killing Corey Jones back in 2015. Newman Raja was a former police officer. You can see him there on your screen. Corey Jones was a stranded motorist on the side of the road in Florida back in October of 2015 when Newman Raja approached. He says he identified himself as a police officer, but audio suggests possibly otherwise. Also, we've been following Christopher Watts. Now, that was the case in Colorado where Christopher Watts originally said his wife, Shanann, had killed her two daughters and then that he killed her based on that. But that, we learned, was not the case. The attorney for the family of Shanann Watts appeared on Dr. Phil. Here's a sneak peek at what the attorney had to say.
In question, Shanann came home. She and Chris got into a fight. They had made up. They were getting along quite well. Later on, they got into a fight again. In that fight, he essentially confessed to having an affair, that he wanted a divorce, that it was pretty much over between them. And she had said something to the effect of, well, you're not going to see the kids again. As a consequence of that conversation, he strangled her to death.
They have this argument, and she threatens you're not going to see the children again, so he attacks and kills her. Did Bella witness any of that? Did she walk in while he was wrapping her?
Bella walked in and asked, what are you doing with mommy?
All right, so that was a sneak peek of Dr. Phil. Again, check your local listings to find out when that airs. There's a part 2 to that actually airs next Monday. I want to bring in Ronn Blitzer. Ron, so this is a very interesting case, but the sad part, the sick part, in my opinion, is the fact that he initially blamed this on his wife, who he was having an affair with.
Yeah, this is really an upsetting case, and the more information we get about it, it really seems like the more heartbreaking this is. You have, children who, are killed, blaming the wife, and then now, you're getting information saying that, the two of them were having a fight. He admitted to having an affair. He was cheating on her, and it was only then when she threatened to not let him see the kids again that he then took violent action. It's really upsetting to hear about it.
It's really upsetting, and I always say, domestic violence is that silent killer. It always looks peachy on the outside, but you never know what's going on inside someone's home, and that's one of the signs of domestic violence that you don't see. Everyone's like, because we saw the Facebook videos of Shanann, and she's singing and she's happy, and it appeared to be happy on the outside, but you never know what's going on in someone's home. So let's take a look at Christopher Watts himself, and let's listen to what he told investigators about the night in question.
Will you tell us what you told your dad?
After that conversation. Water, no, you're fine. Yeah. After that conversation we had, and she accused me of the affair. In her heart, she knew what was going on. And she knew about the dinner the other night. It was too much for just me. She knew about what now? When I told her I went to a Rockies game. I went out to bed. That was my babies.
Okay, so that was Christopher Watts himself. Still with my panel here, Katie Charkowski and Ronn Blitzer here in the studio. Katie, I want to start with you. Here's where I'm having a problem. So she's this young, beautiful woman. She has a lot of friends, but yet no one knew about this affair that she supposedly caught him in. My personal opinion is I think she found out about that affair that night, and she really never had a chance to react to it. And the reason I say that is, listen, I've been married twice. I know how things go in marriages, and when you're having problems, you usually take your anger out on the spouse. You don't go for your kids, especially kids that you gave birth to. So I have this huge problem with that story.
Yeah, the story doesn't really make a lot of sense. And regardless, maybe she had some inkling that something was going on, but I think that she very well could have found out about it that night. But if I were him, the idea that her response was, you're just not going to see the kids anymore, is certainly not enough to motivate someone to murder. He should have come up with a better story about what she really said when she found out about that, if that was going to be his excuse. So I think she probably found out about that night, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really make much difference for his reaction.
Yeah, it doesn't make much difference. And Ron, to Katie's point, maybe he should have come up with a better story that, yeah, I went downstairs, I was going to pack a bag, and then I went upstairs and she had killed our children.
Yeah, that would have made a lot more sense. Also, you think about it, the story, indicates that what set him off was being told that he wouldn't get to see his kids again, so then he murders the kids.
Right.
Like, that really doesn't add up.
Right, and typically if you're having this affair and you're seeing other women, if she says, well, you're not going to see your kids again. Okay,
yeah.
Yeah, because, I'm having this affair with this other woman, and maybe I'll go have kids with her, or maybe I already have a child or two with her. We don't know, but just for her to say, well, you'll never see your kids again. Okay, well, I'll kill them. That makes zero sense to me. I'm sure it makes zero sense to a lot of people. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to have a recap of Newman Raja on the other side. Stay tuned to the Law and Crime Network. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to the Law and Crime Network, continuing coverage of the Newman Raja trial. Again, he's on trial right now for the shooting death of Corey Jones in 2015. Newman Raja was a police officer at the time, and he says that when he exited his vehicle to approach Corey Jones, who was a stranded motorist, he actually said, "Hey, police, may I help you?" But what Newman Raja did not know was Corey Jones was on the phone with AT&T roadside assistance, and that call was recorded, and we have the audio. Let's take a listen.
Stop. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. Get your fucking hands up. Get your fucking hands up. Go.
Oh my gosh. There's gunshots.
Okay, so again, that was audio from the night Corey Jones was shot and killed by Newman Raja, who was a police officer at the time. And again, Newman Raja has said since day one he identified himself as a police officer. And Ron, in listening to that, it's clear that Corey Jones was responding to something because he said, huh. Now, I guess my question is, if someone approached you and said, "Hey, police, may I help you?" would your response be, huh? Or would it be, "Oh, I'm on the phone with roadside assistance at this point, and, a road truck was already here that couldn't help me. I'm just waiting for a tow truck"?
Yeah, if I was in that situation and someone approached me, identified themselves as an officer, I wouldn't have that confused response. But if they did not identify themselves, I certainly would, especially given that he was not in uniform, didn't have any identifying markers, was in an unmarked vehicle. You're sitting there with a car that broke down on the side of the road, another car comes over, blocks you off, and at 3 in the morning, right. I'd be pretty confused, to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Katie, so again, Newman Raja says, yeah, I said police, but it's not clear what was said there. Now, for argument's sake, let's play devil's advocate. Let's say that is what he said, and then things escalated. But do you think a reasonable person would, oh, this is a police officer, a reasonable person that's not breaking the law, who doesn't have a criminal record, who didn't have drugs in the car, who had the gun legally, do you think that would be the response that Corey Jones would have done if that's what he heard Raja say?
Well, I don't think a reasonable person would have reacted that way, but of course the defense can make the argument that this person did that. I mean, that's what they're hoping for. I don't think the audio really supports that. Of course, there has to be something preceding Corey Jones' response, right, but it doesn't seem like what the defense needs it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So the defense actually called an expert who's a forensic examiner in audio video technology, Frank Piazza, and he testified on behalf of the defense. Let's hear what he had to say.
This ends with "I'm good."
Yes.
And it begins with the first, at least as far as I'm concerned, human voice that you can hear is "huh."
Yes, very difficult to hear in this environment in open speakers like this.
Okay, but this is an unenhanced version.
That's correct.
Okay, and when you said it was interesting, what part were you referring to?
Well, using this graphic, in the area of right around 1 second.
Well, I don't think there was any debate whether it was a human voice on that tape. We can assume it wasn't a bear or a mountain lion or a Chewbacca from Star Wars here, Katie. So what did we learn from that testimony, if anything, at this point? Because that's never been disputed that this was a human voice. What did we learn from this testimony?
Well, I think obviously the purpose for the defense is to put forth the possibility that there was an identification of the officer as a police officer. And this is just opening up the possibility that there was some conversation that took place before the response from Corey Jones that couldn't be deciphered. And whether that is in line with the officer's testimony is really the open question here. So
okay.
That was the purpose of that.
All right, so Ron, to you. Now, Raja said during his video statement towards the end of it, I made sure I said it really loud. So at this point, would we even need this forensic guy to come in, because we could hear, "You good? Yeah, I'm good. Really?" And then drop the, that's when I hear his voice escalate when he's saying drop the gun. But if he said it as loud as he said he did, why would we even need this? I think it should be clear on that audio tape.
Absolutely. You know, if he really said this loudly as he claimed, you think you would have heard it at the same level as other loud statements.
Right. Especially the one about drop the gun, because that's when his voice really, really got loud, and it was even loud during a 911 call.
Yes, and you would think that when, you know, you're not dressed in uniform and you're not driving a marked vehicle or even an unmarked vehicle with police lights or sirens or anything, if you're trying to identify that you are actually a cop, you'd want to be loud and forceful about it to make it very clear. Because you know, if you are the driver here, if you're Jones and someone approaches you at 3 in the morning, even if they do say that they're a police officer, without anything else to show that and no badge or shield or anything being displayed, that's still really confusing.
Yeah, and then your response could be, huh?
Exactly.
You're police? What? Okay. Well, let's listen more from Frank Piazza again. He enhanced that sound. Let's take a listen to what he had to say when he enhanced it a second time.
Not the AT&T operator, not Mr. Jones, and not Mr. Raja. If you assume that those are the only people out there, are you able to say with certainty that that voice belongs to one of those 3 people, and if so, which one?
Yes, I can. And again, it really is a process of knowing and confirming that there's only the voices that you mentioned that could be present in that recording. And because like the phrasing has 4 syllables or the movement is 4.
Okay. All right. So did you yet again enhance it more?
No, that's as far as I went.
Okay. So what is the 4th video then, or the 4th spectrogram?
So I think we demonstrated pretty clearly now as you watch the vertical line move across where the voice has been enhanced. We've just given an additional graphic overlay to demonstrate what, and just to make sure that you are hearing what you're seeing. So if you play it, you'll see it's a graphic overlay.
Okay, but before we do, are you able to determine how many seconds it was from the Raja voice to Mr. Jones saying, huh?
Yes, I have. It is from the start of when Mr. Raja speaks his voice to the start of when Mr. Jones says, huh, it's 6.3 seconds.
Okay.
Okay, so that was more testimony there from that expert who enhanced the sound. Now, Katie, I failed algebra. I wasn't that great at geometry, but I know 2 + 2. And he says that that was at least a minimum of 4 syllables. But if my math is right, and Raja said this numerous times, hey, police, may I help you? Now, if I'm counting that right, that is 7 syllables. So we still don't know what Raja said there.
Right, exactly. So it's still arguable that it could be consistent with the defense's theory, but it really doesn't get us that far. There's really nothing further that the expert could provide, though, and I think that he did what he could to try to enhance the audio, but
Right.
can only do so much.
Yeah, you can only do so much, especially when you can't make out what he was saying there, Ron. And listen, 4 syllables could have been what's going on. That's 4 syllables. And again, if I'm Corey Jones and you approach me and you say, what's going on? My response is going to be, huh? I may have actually said a few 4-letter words in there, like, who the heck are you, man? Like, I'm at my car. Why are you asking me what's going on? Unless you're here to help. So to me, that testimony really didn't do anything. Like, well, it could be 4 syllables, but we still don't know what he said.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no expert like the witness on the stand, but this really didn't mean a whole lot to me other than what you pointed out, that it seems to be inconsistent with what Raja was saying.
Right.
You know, it sounds like 4 syllables. You know, they say, you know, it sounds like a human voice. Okay. But, you know, while it may have been human and not Chewbacca, it might as well have been Chewbacca for all I could make sense of it.
Because it really made no sense. Now, if Raja would have said, I only said police stop right there or something, or police stop, that's consistent with a minimum of 3 to 4 syllables, but not, hey, police, may I help you? We're going to take a quick break. We have so much more to come on a recap of Newman Raja in Florida. Stay tuned to the Law and Crime Network. We'll be right back. Okay, so we heard testimony from a band member. We heard testimony from Corey Jones' brother and the AT&T roadside assistance dispatcher, all about the state of mind of Corey Jones on the night he was shot and killed. And Ron, I guess what the prosecution was establishing here was, even though he was broken down, even though he'd been there for hours, he was not confrontational. So therefore, he wouldn't have been confrontational with Newman Raja, knowing he was a police officer.
Exactly. There's no indication here based on, you know, his character, based on the little bit that they were able to say during their testimony, and you know what was going on at the time to, you know, show that any of this would have happened and that Raja, you know, would have been the target of any kind of confrontation.
Right. And Katie, let me toss it to you, because we know that confrontation and escalation only takes a split second. So playing devil's advocate here, yes, he wasn't upset during the call. He wasn't upset when his brother showed up or when his bandmate showed up. But if you got this guy approaching you in an aggressive manner, that confrontation goes from 0 to 100 just like that. What say you?
Right, exactly. So I think the testimony shows that he wasn't previously in some sort of place looking for a fight or looking for some sort of confrontation, but that doesn't foreclose the possibility that as soon as he was approached, even if it was validly by a police officer, that he could have flipped a switch.
Right, absolutely. So the shooting actually occurred right off of I-95 and PGA Boulevard there in the county of Florida where Corey Jones was living at the time. Now, there was a DoubleTree hotel just off that exit, and there was actually a Kelly Sheridan who was in one of the rooms. She was staying there overnight for a convention. She actually called 911. She actually took the stand in this trial. Let's hear part of her testimony.
I saw a gentleman holding a gun and stepping backwards from the area, walking backwards, holding a gun in one hand and his cell phone in another hand.
Did you see any other people walking or running near or around that gentleman?
I did not.
So would he have been the only person that you saw?
Yes.
And were you able to get a really clear look at him?
Yes.
I know that it was 3 a.m. or around 3 a.m. So was it still dark outside?
It was.
How about lighting? Was there any lighting in the area?
There was. There were street lights on, you know, coming off of the interstate, off of the exit ramp, light posts.
And did you see any vehicles?
I did. It was, I saw a vehicle heading off of the exit ramp near PGA Boulevard on the right-hand side, and it was an SUV.
We'll come back to that.
Okay.
So did there ever come a time where you noticed that a body was out there, a dead body?
Yes.
Okay, and how did you see that or learn that?
Once, you know, all the other law enforcement got to the scene, and there, you know, came a point after they had come around that they were then in that wooded area with flashlights, and that's when I saw the body on the ground in the wooded, grassy area.
So you were still watching as police officers discovered the body?
Okay, so that's Kelly Sheridan. She was staying at the Doubletree Hotel, which was just a few yards from where the shooting of Corey Jones took place. And Ron, what's interesting here is she has no reason to lie about what she said. She doesn't know Corey Jones. She didn't know him in 2015. She definitely didn't know Newman Raja. She didn't know what was going on. She just saw a man with a gun who she said she didn't know was a police officer. She didn't identify him to be a police officer. But one of the things that strikes me odd in her testimony and even in her 911 call, well, her friend made the call, she's in the background. She says several times he has on a collared shirt, but on our screen right there, you can see this T-shirt that's on inside out. And I think if she saw that much detail, she would be able to determine a collared shirt. I don't see a collar on that shirt. So could it be, Ron, that in the few minutes before his backup showed up, that Newman Raja, for whatever reason, went back to his truck, or his van, I should say, and changed his shirt?
Absolutely. You know, he's saying, or you know, he's being described by this witness as wearing a collared shirt. That was not a collared shirt. I know what a collared shirt looks like. Right. That wasn't it. So, you know, the only explanation is, you know, either she couldn't see properly, but she seemed pretty definitive in her description, or he changed. Right.
And Katie, what do you think about this? You know, his story, Roger's story was, if you listen to the full statement that he gave investigators, the reason his T-shirt was on inside out because he was asked, he says, well, I have an American flag on the shirt, and the day before at roll call, someone said, hey, man, you look like the police with the American flag on your shirt. But when you listen to testimony from his sergeant who said he was supposed to be marked as a police officer, honestly, the last thing, if someone approached me with an American flag on their shirt, the one thing that's not going to ring out is, oh, this guy's a cop. I may say, hey, man, were you in the Army? Were you in the Air Force? Did you serve the country? You know, what's the purpose of the American flag? But the last thing I'm thinking, oh, this guy's a cop. So what do you even make of that statement from Roger?
I think a lot of his statements are just him digging himself into a deeper hole, honestly. And that's probably yet another example of that. I think, on the other hand, it's possible that the witness was mistaken about it being a collared shirt. She saw a tag kind of flipping out. I mean, witness memory is historically not accurate, even if people are very confident in their memory. So it's possible, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The fact that it's on inside out seems like a quick change job in the car, possibly as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, it was about 3:30 in the morning when she called 911, and we don't know if she was asleep at the time when she heard those gunshots, so there could be a lot of factors there. We're going to take a quick break. We have so much more to dive into in the Newman Raja case in Florida. We'll be right back on the Law&Crime Network. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Law&Crime Network. Again, continuing coverage of the Newman Raja trial in Florida. He's a former police officer who shot and killed Corey Jones back in October of 2015 when Corey Jones was broken down on the side of the road. Now, Newman Raja, during his video statement to investigators just 4 hours after the shooting, testified that Corey Jones' gun, Corey Jones was armed, he was legally armed for the record. Corey Jones' gun was equipped with a laser sight. So let's hear part of that video statement from Newman Raja on the day of the shooting.
Eve, I'm trying to think. It's like, I remember he came out and said, drop. I can't hear you.
Yeah, but hold on.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking. I know when he had the gun pointed at me around the car and everything, I fired. I know that.
Do you remember exactly where he was at when he? And let me go back. You said that you got out, you jumped out, and you came around here. When did the gun come into play, and where did it come from?
See, he jumped out immediately. He said, "I'm okay, man." He said, "I'm okay, I'm okay." And I said, "Hey, man, police, can I help? Can I help you?" And second, I said, I remember.
Don't touch
okay,
yeah, don't
exactly.
touch.
I'm not touching anything. No.
Don't touch.
I remember clearly seeing this. The gun was right here. I remember seeing it above the door level, and it was in this area right here, pointing at directly at me. And I remember seeing it was a silver gun. I could clearly see the hole of the muzzle, and I could see that Laser Max laser in the guide rod flickering. It was like flickers red on.
All right, so there you had it. Newman Rogers said it was a Laser Max sight. He even named the brand. I don't know how he would be able to do that at 3:30 in the morning in the dark, but that's what he said. But we had testimony from a crime scene investigator about that. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
A point in time where you would have gone back out to the scene where this happened?
There were occasions, a few occasions where I did return back out to the scene.
Okay. And did you go back to the scene at one point to conduct a light reflectivity test?
Yes, I did, because the gun was a shiny chrome material on the exterior, and Officer Raja, to him it appeared to be a flickering laser, and we had the idea that maybe at that time of day with the traffic signal, which would have been possibly behind Officer Raja, that the chrome of the gun may have been reflecting that red light back at him and made it appear that there was a light source on the gun itself.
And you indicated to us that you are familiar with a Laser Max laser. Did that appear to be a Laser Max laser to you?
It did not appear to be. That gun has an enclosed guide rod anyway. That gun wouldn't be compatible with the Laser Max laser. We tried to get the red reflectivity and the flicker pattern. We got the red. We tried from several different angles, and we couldn't get the same flicker pattern or any flicker pattern.
And a Laser Max laser constantly flickers.
It flickers.
And you never got that?
I was not able to recreate that effect.
Okay, so that was testimony from a crime scene investigator. Katie, I want to come to you first. Listen, the average person, first of all, is not putting laser sights on their handguns that they buy for protection, unless you're an avid shooter and you do a lot of shooting. The point of a laser sight is pointless. And the fact that Newman Raja said, I know it was a Laser Max, listen, that stuff's going at the speed of light. It escalated from 0 to 100 just like that. Your eyes are not focused on, oh, look at that sight. It's a Laser Max and the serial number. So that, to me, that's not even believable that he says, I know it's a Laser Max.
Right. I think that it was just another attempt by Raja to explain why he reacted as quickly and as violently as he did, quite frankly. And if there was a laser sight on it, he could argue that this person was clearly aiming to shoot him and give him more justification for what ultimately happened. So it's another poor attempt, I think, at his defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ron, one of the things when someone's being deceitful, they like to embellish a lot of stuff. And I think he embellished the heck out of this Laser Max sight. And, well, I teach firearms, so I know that's what it was.
Oh, absolutely. You know, he's trying to throw in these extra details to make it look like, oh, I knew what was happening. I remember everything. I knew. But how on earth would he be able to see this? How would he be able to actually remember this, given all that happened? And he didn't seem to really remember important details that happened during that situation. So, yeah, I don't buy it for a second.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff he didn't remember because there were a few times where he would say, I'm thinking. And to me, if you live this event and you're telling the event as truthful as possible, you don't have to say, well, I'm thinking. And there was a lot of and ums. Again, Newman Raja is on trial for the shooting death of Corey Jones. He was shot and killed in October 2015 while Newman Raja was a police officer in plain clothes. Closing arguments are tomorrow starting at 8:30. We'll cover that here on the Law and Crime Network. We have Aaron Keller coming up with the Daily Debrief with a recap of everything Law and Crime. Stay tuned for that. We'll be right back here on the Law and Crime Network. I'll see you later. Goodbye.